Hey, welcome back to the podcast, Game Changers. I'm excited today to have Elaine Roberts with me, attorney here in Montgomery County, Texas. And she is an executive director of the Dispute Resolution Center. I've known Elaine for a couple years now, just a fantastic person. And I know that we're going to learn a lot today. So, Elaine, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I've been a longtime fan of your business acumen and your podcast. So
Wow.
it's a
You're a
pleasure to
great
be
guest already. Well, thank you. Thank
here.
you. And it's great to have you. So,
Mhm.
Elaine, you have served as the executive director of the Dispute Resolution Center of Montgomery County since April of 2014. And we'll
Correct.
talk a little bit about what that means because a lot of the listeners don't understand or
Mhm.
may not be aware of a
Mhm.
Dispute Resolution Center.
Mhm.
But you're a graduate of the University of Houston Law Center, and you have extensive experience as a civil rights attorney and mediator, both in private law firms and in the nonprofit sector.
Mhm.
Prior to joining the DRC, the Dispute Resolution Center in Montgomery County, you served as director of the Houston Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, legal director of a statewide disability rights organization, and was a volunteer mediator, trainer, board member for the Dispute Resolution Center of Harris County. And for our
Correct.
listeners, that is Houston. So Montgomery County just being north of Houston and
Mhm.
Harris County. You're a proud graduate of the Leadership Montgomery County class of 2016. Good
Best
for
class
you.
ever.
Well, up until 2022. So,
Well, I have a soft spot for the class of 2022, so I won't argue
wow.
as hard as I typically would.
And so for our listeners, for their sake, we're kind of going back and forth on the leadership Montgomery County program, but that's how we got connected. I was in the
Correct?
class of 2022, and it's a fantastic program
It
that
really is.
helps leaders in the area learn how the county functions and how what it takes to
Mhm.
really develop and lead government and different
Mhm.
sectors of the county. So fantastic program. I'm glad you went through it. I'm glad we had a chance to meet.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. You're honored to have been selected by State Bar of Texas Alternative Dispute Resolution Section for the 2020 Justice Frank Evans Award. That
Mhm.
is very prestigious. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was shocked to receive the award because Frank Evans had been one of my idols in law school. He was basically the founder of ADR, alternative dispute resolution practices, including mediation in Texas. So I don't consider myself anywhere near his ability or his stature, but each year the state bar recognizes an individual who has contributed to the field of alternative dispute resolution and has encouraged it in the state of Texas. And I was honored to be a recipient of that award.
Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
You bring so much professionalism, experience to the DRC, and you're one of those people where you just feel like we talk, after you get to know you a little bit, you feel like, wow, I'm a better person because I know Elaine Roberts.
Oh, thank you. I'm
I
blushing.
It's true. I mean, you're one of those people that we need to know. So tell us, Elaine, what motivated you to go to law school and pursue a career in as an attorney?
Well, it was sort of a progression. As a child, I can remember always telling my parents, I really want to make a difference in the world. I want what I do to make an impact on people.
You
And
knew
then
that
as
as a
I got into
child.
high school, I got involved in debate, public speaking competitions, and the Louisiana Girls State. So that really kind of taught me that you have to really speak out for things that you believe in, but it also taught me that you need to speak up for other people who perhaps don't have the ability or the time or the knowledge to speak for themselves.
And you
And
knew that at a
then,
young age. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. And then when I got in college, I had a history major and sociology minor, which I love both subjects. And law combines both of those. So it just seemed like a natural progression. Law combined the things that interested me as well as the talents I seemed to display. So it was a natural progression to go into that. And I tell people too that as a good student all my life, someone who likes to learn and continue to grow, I couldn't think of another occupation which would pay me to study and learn new topics and just develop throughout my life, and law seemed to fit the bill. So that's why I decided on law school.
Awesome. And then how did you decide what part of law to pursue? You know,
Well, I
you're
was
involved in
lucky
the
to,
nonprofit sector, so I mean, it's a sort of a
yeah.
different career path.
It is. And I've had a chance to experience both, you know, the law firm, the public service, and the nonprofit world. And in law school, I was lucky to have as a teacher Laura Rothstein, who is considered the preeminent expert in the field of disability law. And although I had entered law school thinking that I was going to go into admiralty and maritime law because I'd been a paralegal in an admiralty and maritime law firm for 2 years, once I got into disability law, I just loved the topic. It seemed like a place where I could really make a difference. It was in an area where it was a new legislation was being passed at the time. And so I felt like I could really make a mark and help to establish that law. And I did practice that law, special education, disability rights, employment discrimination, primarily in the federal court, and I enjoyed it. But at the same time, I had also been trained as a mediator by Judge Evans, actually.
Okay.
And he was one of my teachers. And I always enjoyed that. I felt like a sense of accomplishment whenever I did a mediation. But then I sort of had a game changer moment, if you will,
Yeah.
when I accepted this one case. It was an amazing case, an amazing opportunity to establish law in the
Okay.
area of disability rights issues and how that related to the cruise industry. Were they subject to American laws if they, even though they sailed from foreign flagged ships that were
Okay.
housed here in the United States? And
So
I
that's
had
interesting.
taken
This was somebody that was on a cruise.
exactly,
Okay.
and
All
what
right.
we found at the time is that people boarding in Houston, if they had a disability and required a an accessible room, were sometimes being forced to pay 2 to 4 times more for their cruises than their non-disabled relatives or traveling companions. In addition, they were being told on the vessels that if there is a case of emergency, you have to have your own attendant because we cannot rescue you. And they could not travel in many of the ports or access many of the portions of the vessels. So they basically were getting very
Interesting.
expensive boat rides that
Right.
they couldn't
Right.
enjoy.
So
And I
nothing
had to
was ADA accessible and they did not have to
no.
comply.
Well, the small portions of the boat that were accessible at the time of these vessels, they had to pay 2 to 4 times what their traveling counterparts had to pay in order to get those accommodations. So it was really a worthy cause. I've had a plaintiff who had with a severe disability who utilized a wheelchair for access, who had come to me saying, "This just isn't right. I just want a relaxing vacation and I want to be treated fairly." And so I had taken his case, and the case was indeed a monumental case. It ended up taking 10 years to go
Oh
through
my
the
gosh.
courts. It
10
did
years?
establish good law, but the problem was by the time the case was over, the client that I had taken the case for was deceased.
Oh boy.
And so at that point, it just really seemed to me there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a cheaper, um, less stressful, uh, quicker way to get people what they need. And that's when I started really focusing in on my mediation practice
Okay.
because it allowed me to offer people an alternative to being able to or having to litigate a
Right.
matter in order to get a change because people may
Well, that,
not realize it, but sometimes what a judge cannot order in court because the law isn't there yet, if the parties
yeah,
agree to it voluntarily in a mediation, as long as it's not illegal, can be an enforceable agreement. So I was
by
convinced that
law.
many of the things that I was
Yeah.
trying to accomplish through litigation could also be accomplished by mediation. And at the time that I had moved up to Montgomery County, we had just come back from 2 years in Australia. So rather than reestablishing a litigation practice, the opening came up at the Dispute Resolution Center in Montgomery County. It seemed like a good fit for my talents, and the rest is history.
Boy.
I'm a recovering lawyer who is very happy in the mediation practice.
Well, I would say that yes, that situation, that lawsuit was a game-changing event for you.
It
But
really was.
in addition to that, you yourself are a game changer. I mean,
Mm,
what you've done in your career and what you've done in Montgomery County has
mm,
really made a huge impact on
thank
the
you.
community. So describe for all of us exactly what is the Dispute Resolution Center? What's the
Mhm,
purpose? Who do you serve? And how do
mhm.
people learn more about it?
Okay, I'll be glad to. The Dispute Resolution Center is actually a 501(c)(3) nonprofit that was set up in 1988 by the Commissioners Court, the Montgomery County Commissioners Court, and the Montgomery County Bar Association. And
Okay.
this was done in conjunction with some legislation that had passed in Texas, which said that people in Texas should have the opportunity to resolve their own disputes and the resources to do that. Or if they were involved in litigation, rather than spending years in court, they should have the opportunity to try and resolve those legal disputes in an alternative way. So it gave counties the authority to establish a alternative dispute resolution center in the area to serve its citizens. Now, there are 17 such organizations across the state. Some are run by the counties in which they're located. Some are run by several counties in a joint type of agreement. And a number of them are 501(c)(3)s, just as we are.
But that's
Um,
not many. 17 in the state of Texas. I mean,
right.
this is a big state.
It is, it's very big. And at the time that we were established back in 1988, Montgomery County was the smallest county to actually establish a dispute
Hmm.
resolution center. The Dallases, the Harris counties, the big counties had established them, but none of the smaller counties have. So you could say that Montgomery County Commissioners Court and the Montgomery County Bar Association were well ahead of their time.
Yeah.
So
Well, back in
our
1988, the population was probably, I'm gonna guess, 100, 150,000, 200,000, maybe?
Yeah, I wasn't here at that time, so I can't tell you, but I
Yeah,
would say that it was much smaller than
much
it is
smaller.
now.
Yeah.
I know that when the DRC first started, it was at a table on the third floor of the courthouse.
Oh,
So
well,
it's
that
come
speaks
a
for
long
itself because
way.
yes, because you have a very nice, decent sized office, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, we have a
Yeah.
lovely office. We're located right across from the main courthouse. We're in the Keyshan building.
Downtown Conroe.
And yeah, just immediately on North Thompson Street at 301 North Thompson Street. And we have multiple settings where we can do mediations 5 days a week. And in fact, that kind of gets to our mission. Our mission as a nonprofit is to provide and promote affordable, high quality conflict resolution services in and training in the Montgomery County area. So our first goal, of course, is the mediation, and we do offer those both in person and online via Zoom so that people from the comfort of and safety of their homes can mediate their disputes. We do that
Mhm.
Monday through Friday. We ask people to set aside at least 4 hours. So we do have mediations starting at 8:30 in the morning, going till approximately 12:30, and then afternoon sessions going from 1 to 5. And we have lovely facilities, like we've discussed, across the street from the courthouse. Free
Mhm.
parking is available, and we have the capacity that we can run up to 5 mediations in the morning, 5 mediations in the afternoon, and that's not an uncommon practice for us.
Mhm. Very
Um,
good.
we are volunteer driven, so
Mhm.
citizens from Montgomery County who want to make their the area that they live in more peaceful and offer their neighbors and friends an opportunity to resolve their own disputes, they volunteer their time. Approximately $500,000 is donated to the county each year
Mhm.
by our wonderful volunteers who come in and provide the mediations. And I should point
That's a
out
lot of volunteer hours. A half a
exactly.
million dollars. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it really is a
Thank
cost
goodness
saving.
for those volunteers.
Yeah, thank goodness. And uh, I need to point out that they are actively trained. They comply with all requirements. We have a mentorship program that they go through. They're constantly providing ongoing education. So that's our goal in making it that high quality services that we talk
Sure.
about providing. And then the second prong of our mission is to provide training. And so our understanding is that no one's ever too old or too young to learn conflict resolution skills. So we do offer um, training so that people
Mhm.
can become mediators. We offer general mediation, child protective services, family mediation training that would qualify a person who wants to learn to become a mediator. But we also custom design programs for businesses, for governmental agencies
So
to meet
important.
the needs that they have. So, for
Yeah.
instance, a couple of years ago, we worked with the Conroe ISD Police Department to help learn mediation techniques to de-escalate tense
Within the school
situations.
district. So Conroe ISD
Mhm.
is the local independent school district. And they have their own
Exactly.
police department within the district. So
Mhm.
just to kind of give everybody a perspective, Conroe ISD Independent School District is huge. There's, I
Mhm.
think, 70 or 80,000 students.
Mhm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a very large school district. That's one of the largest in the state, I believe.
It is,
And
yeah.
there are
And
7,000 teachers
I'm not
or
sure
or
exactly,
employees, but it's
but
so
it
anyway,
sounds.
just to set perspective, it is
Mhm.
a significant employer and entity within Montgomery County.
Exactly. And we work with nonprofits, we work with small business entities to kind of meet their needs. But one of our most exciting aspects that we're doing is all the work we're doing with youth. We have developed peer mediation training programs where we train high school students in the area to be able to mediate disputes on their own campuses. That way disputes
Man,
don't
so important,
accelerate.
right?
Mhm.
I mean, that should almost be required curriculum in high
I
school,
agree.
especially in
And,
today's world.
actually, some of the medical schools and law schools and colleges are now actually requiring mediation skills. So the
Good.
students that get it in high school and in junior high just have an amazing advantage. And we do currently have programs in 3 of the Conroe ISD schools now for peer mediation training. We do train the trainer where we train teachers on how to select the appropriate students for these programs, how to train them so that they can mentor their own peers and help resolve things. And we get really good feedback on that. We have peace camps now, which offers
Well, that
uh,
sounds important. Peace camps.
peace camps, yes. It open to kids in the 5th grade through 12th grade. We have them separated out, of course, into different dates and times based on their age group. But what they do is they come to us and they learn conflict resolution skills, but in a fun way, doing fun activities, as you might expect at a camp during the summer. It's a 2-day program, and we have excellent feedback on that. We provide support to the juvenile justice system because they refer kids to us who maybe have been in some kind of trouble at school because they don't have the conflict resolution skills that are necessary to resolve things peacefully, and things get a little out of hand. So they refer the students as well as their parent to us, and we do a 4-part session where we teach them communication skills, anger management, simple things like how to apologize, you know,
Wow.
things that
Because,
we
because
might take.
take for granted, and the parents might not even know how to, correctly and appropriately apologize because
Mhm.
the
And
kids are a product of their environment.
we have received excellent feedback from the juvenile justice system, that it's helped to reduce recidivism. So the kids aren't recommitting any kind of infraction that they might have before. From the parents who say, wow, they didn't know these things to teach their kids, and from the students themselves. And we're going to be expanding that program next year, working with Judge Wayne Mack and Judge Valdez for some diversion type programs, a shorter term program, which will still work with students who are maybe involved in truancy or other minor infractions and their parents.
So how did you
And
get the judges involved? Because
well, it was
that's a huge
contact.
step forward, right? I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. And most of the judges are familiar with our work because we do so much mediation. For instance, we go to Judge Mack's court both in Montgomery County and in in Montgomery, Texas, and in Willis, and we provide on-site mediations. So if somebody comes in for a docket call, which would typically set a trial for their case, they're offered the opportunity of doing a free mediation. At that point, we go into the jury rooms with them and we work with them to see if the conflict can be resolved. And if it can, we write up an agreement that's a legally enforceable document. So they were familiar already with our work. But then we reached out to them when we were having such success with the juvenile offender program that was referring cases to us. And the JP courts and the juvenile courts are under mandate to have alternative programs available for their students by 2025. So it just seemed to fit as a good fit and a supplement to those programs. And then, of
Wonderful.
course, we have our bookmark art contest,
Well,
which
that kind of leads me to my next question, and that
Mhm,
is, what would you consider one or two of your greatest successes while you've been at the
mhm.
DRC, and which will be 10 years as of next year?
Yeah, exactly. One of the greatest successes that I think that we had was our ability to pivot during the pandemic. You know, we had a
Oh,
30-year model in place of
yeah.
doing on-site in-person mediations, and that
Mhm.
really wasn't possible with the shutdowns of the courts and other agencies and buildings.
But you didn't
So
stop.
we no, we had a 3-day window of opportunity to bring our mediators in and to teach them how to do Zoom mediations. So we changed our 30-year business model in a matter of 3 days. And I really have to compliment our volunteers for being so agreeable and so flexible, but because of their flexibility and their willingness to work with us and learn this new technique, we were able to stay open the entire pandemic. We never closed down. We continued to provide mediations and offer sometimes the only way a party could resolve a dispute during the pandemic if their court was closed or if it was backed up due to the earlier court closures. So we're very
Interesting.
proud
Yeah.
of that. Not
Yeah. Yeah. Not closing at all, staying open during the
Mhm,
pandemic in 3 days, changing
mhm.
your entire business model. Yeah, that's a huge success, Elaine. Huge
Yeah,
success.
and not many of the DRCs were able to do that. So we feel really proud that our folks just kind of rallied around us and were agreeable to moving with us to this new frontier.
Yeah,
And
well, it
then,
helps to have a very strong and effective leader in place, right? Which
well,
is
thank
you.
you. Blushing again.
Yeah. So what are some
And
other successes?
well, I would say that the bookmark art contest has been a real success.
Boy, I would think so. Let's talk about
Yeah,
that a little bit. What
yeah.
exactly is the bookmark art contest, and what has made it such a success? Because when you
Okay.
think about it, I mean, just somebody learning about it, you know, just in passing, wouldn't really understand what does the bookmark art contest have to do with
Mm.
dispute resolution?
Exactly. And many members of our board thought that as well when I broached the idea. So it took quite
Yeah.
a bit of convincing, but I had heard about a contest in Maryland that was
Okay.
sponsored by the Maryland Supreme Court, and they asked kids in Maryland to come up with ideas of ways to resolve conflict peacefully or to keep disputes from accelerating. So I had contacted the court and asked them if we could utilize some of their ideas if we decided to establish a similar contest in Montgomery County. And at the time, they told me, yes, you can do it, but don't get discouraged because they had been running a statewide competition for several years, and this was their Supreme Court. So it's, highly regarded and
Right.
prestigious. And they said, we only get about 25 entries each year. Now, this is back in 2014.
25.
Yeah, this was back in 2014. So just don't be discouraged. Give it a little while. So I approached the board. As you may know, bullying is a significant health problem and crisis for teens and youth. One in
Yeah.
5 kids is bullied. They go on to bully other kids if it's not addressed. Sometimes they say 30% of the kids who were bullied then go on to bully other kids themselves because that's what they've seen. And they can carry long-term health consequences
Oh,
for
yeah, it's a
kids who
huge
were
huge
bullied.
problem, and
Yeah,
social
so
media just adds to it.
And we knew that that was a problem in Montgomery County. So how do you address it? What is a way that you can take difficult concepts, make it fun for the kids, and still produce a lasting effect? And the bookmark art contest fit that requirement. So the very first year that we did it in 2014, when I came, we expected 25 and we got 640 entries. So we,
Wow. So did you go back to the folks in Maryland and say, well, thanks for your, words of wisdom and, sage counsel, but we have 600, over 600 entries.
I didn't want to press my luck with Supreme Court justices, so I
Well,
passed on that. But we were really pleased, and we knew that we were on to a concept that the kids and the schools could get behind. So basically, we opened the contest for kids in Montgomery County. They can either live in Montgomery County or attend school in Montgomery County in grades K through 8. It's open
mhm.
to public, private school, and homeschool kids. And we ask them simply, we give them the task of coming up with an idea of a way to resolve conflicts peacefully or to prevent bullying. And I don't know if you can see this, but this
Oh
is a
yeah. Yeah.
sample of some of the bookmark art. It's a small surface, so it really requires the child to think it through and to come up with a plan and a concept. Like this one is helping others as needed. This one is just a simple people of different denominations and faiths and colors. And in the background, it says human to show that we're all
Oh
human.
yeah. Wow.
So the kids come up with these amazing ideas that are just shock us each year. But the contest has grown each year, and we give cash prizes both to the students and prizes to the schools in the form of bullying prevention books that are donated to each of the winning schools. And the contest has continued to grow each year. Last year alone, we had over 2,000 entries.
2,000 entries.
Yes.
So just 10, less than 10 years ago, you had 600 and some.
Yeah, and we
Now it's
did
over
have to put a
2,000.
little pause during the pandemic for a year. But luckily, the LMC class of 2022
Hmm.
came in after the pandemic and helped us get it reestablished. And after that 1 year pause, and it's up and going. We have all of the major school districts participating. We have approximately 40 volunteer judges who come to us. They're in both from the art world, they're community leaders like from the Kiwanis Club or the Rotary Club, members of the local bar, our
Mhm.
mediators. We get a variety of judges so that we get a variety of people looking at it.
Yeah.
The kids love it. The schools tell us that it's an exciting way. They have 6 weeks. They correspond their teaching, their required teaching on bullying prevention into a fun activity that the kids invoke a lot of discussion and have fun doing while they're talking about these difficult subjects. Counselors at the schools have told us that they, through the art that's been submitted, they've been able to assist kids who had not stepped forward, who needed assistance with bullying, but they could tell through the art and they were able to approach them.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So through the art, they were able
Mhm.
to convey, somehow communicate their need for help because they were
Mhm.
being bullied.
Exactly. And
That
then
is huge.
the counselors were able to utilize it. And I know Tri-County took one of the bookmark art entries and uses it in their suicide prevention program that's used countywide. And
When you started this, Elaine, back in 2014,
mhm.
did you have any idea where this thing was going to go?
Not to this extent. It's just grown each year. It's a lot of fun. The reception that we do for the kids, we have about 275 people total each year who show up for the award ceremony. And
That's pretty
Judge
cool.
Kathleen,
Having gone to one, it's a cool ceremony.
it
Kids get
is.
excited. So do
And
the
Judge
teachers and the
Kathleen
parents.
Hamilton, who is our MC, is just a hoot. In fact, one year, one of the children, a little 6-year-old, a kindergarten student, was so frightened to come up and get his prize that he crawled under the table. And not to be deterred, Judge Kathleen Hamilton pulled up her judge's robes and crawled under the table with him and gave him
That's
his award.
fantastic. That is
Yeah.
fantastic. Oh
So we
man.
have a lot of fun with it. We're getting ready to start our 2024 contest. It will start on February 1st and it will run till March 11th. And again, it's open to kids in grades K through 8 in Montgomery County. And they can find out more about it on our website, which is resolution-center.org, or they can call our agency, and we will be putting out a lot of information on our social media too about the rules of the contest, the deadlines to remind
Mhm.
people.
Can other DRCs, maybe throughout the state or throughout the country, learn about this program so they can implement something similar? I mean, have
Well,
you presented this idea to other groups throughout the country? Because the success that you've experienced is
mhm,
incredible, and the impact that you've made on the kids, on parents. I
mhm.
mean, it's very significant.
It is significant, and we have done our best to get word out about the contest. We're always available and willing to assist any entity or organization or individual who wants to start something similar. It's no use having to reinvent the wheel. We'll be
Oh,
glad to share our templates and everything with them.
well, and plus you've
But
been so
actually,
successful.
yeah, actually, some of the publishers of the mediation books and programs are actually sending our bookmarks out
Hmm.
nationwide. When a person purchases an alternative dispute resolution book from one of the major publishers, they receive our bookmark in it.
Very
So
cool.
that is a way that we do it. The way we spread the word in Montgomery County is we actually take some of the winners that have been selected by the judges and put them into a published format, which is like this, which is distributed around the county. And I should say that as of this year, before the 2024 contest starts, we've had 11,000 kids go through our program, and we
Wow.
have given out 64,000 bookmarks
Oh
across
my
Montgomery
goodness.
County.
Wha- Those are big numbers. Big
They really
numbers.
are, and I can't think of a way that we could have reached that many people other than the bookmark art contest.
Well, that's a good point. I mean,
Mhm,
11,000 kids I mean,
mhm,
that's a big, that's making, again, a huge impact
mhm,
on the kids in the county, the
mhm,
parents, and you have a
mhm.
lot to be proud of. What are the
Thank you.
plans for 2024 at the DRC in addition to the bookmark club or the contest?
Well, we'll be expanding our juvenile justice programs, both with the juvenile justice referrals. We already have 4 sessions lined up with them. There'll be 4 4-week sessions where we meet with the parents and the students. We have plans to expand into Judge Mack and Judge Valdez's court programs as a diversion anger management tool. We are doing training lots of training. In June, we have our general mediation training, which is a 40-hour live interactive course. And one of the things that's really amazing about our programs and had impressed me when I first came is that our volunteers act as mentors during the training. So not only do you have the professors and the mediators teaching the training and passing on their techniques, but we do 10 mediations during the course of that training where our volunteers come in and provide feedback
Very
to the
good.
students who are in the training. And then if the students decide that they want to volunteer with us, they're assigned a mentor, an experienced mediator who then works with them to continue their progress as a mediator. We've recently been approached by governmental entities to do some in-person training for large numbers of their employees. So we've got a busy schedule
Boy,
already
yeah,
coming
you
up for
do.
the year.
Yeah, and you're always on the go. You've always got
Mhm,
something happening, and the work that you've done at the DRC has been incredible. And the bookmark art contest again kicks off February 1st.
it does. And it goes till
Okay.
March 11th at 5
Okay.
o'clock is the deadline.
Uh-huh.
And we've been lucky to form a cooperative agreement with all of the local libraries. And so that people that are in the outer ranges of the county, instead of having to travel to our office to bring the bookmarks, can now deposit them at any of the branch libraries in Montgomery County. And through our cooperative agreement, we get those entries in a timely manner so they can enter that way. And
Excellent.
yeah.
Very
And then
good.
on
And
April 18th is when we
18th.
will have our awards ceremony. And
Okay.
it will be at the jury selection room.
Okay. Very
Mhm,
good. So, Elaine, in as you reflect back in your career and all the accomplishments that
mhm,
you've had, which have been numerous, who
mhm,
have been the game changers in your life? Because you
mhm.
yourself are truly a game changer, really.
No, thank you.
But along the way, we all have had people that have influenced us in a
Mhm,
positive way and have
mhm,
really made that lasting impact. Who have
mhm.
those people been for you?
Okay. I think, of course, my family, my parents were very strong advocates for um, equal justice, for doing the right thing by your fellow man. I attended parochial school, which had a very strong emphasis on loving your neighbor, looking out for each other. Um, when I was in law school, I had the good fortune of interning with Judge James DeAnda, who was the chief judge of the Southern District of Texas. And he really was instrumental in teaching me that no matter how busy you are with legal things, no matter what your position is, that everybody deserves respect and deserves to be heard. And
Wow,
so he was
that's
a
an important
strong,
message.
he was a strong proponent of that. When I was working with the disability rights organizations, one person, sort of representative of a lot of the people I met, is Sean Pesner. And Sean is
Okay.
an attorney up in the Dallas area. He is severely disabled, has been
Mm.
since birth, requires quite um, a bit of accommodation, not to do what he does, but in order to just be able to get to the work site and everything. And his courage and his persistence just really made a mark on my heart because
Mm.
he was not expected to be able to accomplish much in his life. His parents were advised to institutionalize him.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
and
Mm.
he has master's degrees in Greek studies. He obtained his law degree, got a standing ovation when he went across the stage to get his law license, and has just accomplished amazing things in his
That's an
legal practice.
inspiration. And again,
Yeah,
his name, Elaine?
Sean Pesner,
Sean Pesner.
P-E-B-S-N-E-R. But he's indicative of so many of the people in the disability community that I met and had the privilege of working with, who just want an equal opportunity to show what they can accomplish.
Yeah.
And then, of course, working at the DRC, the people who have inspired me have been the volunteers. They are amazing. I mean, they're such accomplished people. Many of them are accomplished lawyers, mediators, psychologists, doctors. They give of their time freely. They come out around holidays. They come out in hurricanes, come out in COVID, just to make certain
Yep.
that their communities are, safer, more peaceful, and conflicts don't escalate. And then, of course, the people who come to the center really do inspire me, because I see people every day. For instance, couples who are divorcing, it's often not been pretty what's gone
Oh,
on in their
I'm
marriage.
sure. Yeah.
And they've hurt each other. But some of these individuals and parents are just so brave, and they've decided that the child needs to be the focus of the divorce, doesn't need to be caught up in name calling, needs to have a way that they can be with both parents, and they need to have a way that they can co-parent. And
Yeah.
these people are brave enough to try this concept of mediation that they probably never heard of before they went through the divorce.
Well, that's
And
true.
so they come in, they open up to our volunteers, they work on parenting plans together and establish a way that they can go forward in a fast, confidential, and economical way. And then, of course, we have our mediations that we do. We do all of the mediations for children in CPS custody, child protective custody.
Yep.
So they're abused, neglected. Often the parent doesn't have parenting skills necessary at that
Yeah.
time to be able to take care of their child. And, I see constantly the ad
Tough.
litem attorneys, the CASA volunteers, the county attorneys, they all come together at our center to mediate. And instead of the child having to stay years and years in perhaps a broken foster care system, they're able to do permanency planning. So those are the game changers for me.
Well, that's a big game changer because our
Mhm,
kids depend on that. I mean, when you see a kid, well, you know all the stats with foster care, and
mhm.
we need to do whatever we can to help those kids. They're in
Exactly.
a bad environment. The odds are against them. We need to do
Mhm.
whatever we can to help them.
Through no
Well,
fault of their own.
exactly. Yes.
Mhm.
Just just where they ended up. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's on us to do what we can to help them. And you
Mhm,
learned at an early age that it is important for us to help those that are
mhm,
disadvantaged or underprivileged in some way. So good for you
mhm,
for living that out and
mhm,
being a big impact, positive impact on
mhm,
others around you. And I said at the beginning of our
mhm,
conversation, you're one of those people that you just want to be around because
mhm,
you know you're going to be a better person for knowing Elaine Roberts.
mhm.
So
Well,
truly
thank
believe
you.
that. You've done great work. Thank you so much for being on the
Mm,
podcast. I want to wrap up though with a couple of fun questions, if you don't mind.
okay.
So the first one is, if you, as an attorney, as if you
Mhm,
have two federal laws, federal now, not state, federal, that you could, anything that you think we need to have a law for on a
mhm,
federal basis, two,
mhm.
what would those two laws be?
I thought about that quite a bit, and I'm not sure, even as an attorney, that we need any more laws, but I have thought of two things that I wish people would implement. And one of
Okay.
those, the first of those, is putting a mediation agreement in every kind of agreement, for sales of goods, services, products, any type of thing. The late Sandra Day O'Connor was a strong proponent of the philosophy that courts should be the last resort, that they ought to be utilized only when other forms of resolving disputes have been attempted but haven't been successful. And
Seems to
I
be the
believe that
first
as
these
well.
days.
And arbitration clauses, I mean, we see them all the time in agreements, but arbitration is a lot like litigation. They have judges who decide for you, who it can often be costly. It can even be more costly than litigation. Mediation, on the other hand, is fast. It can be done within a week of when you try to, when you bring your dispute to our attention. It's
Mhm.
economical. No one at our center has ever turned away for inability to pay. We do accept affidavits of inability to pay, and it's confidential so that what you say in the mediation can't be used against you later. But most importantly, it gives people the say so in their situation. I mean,
Which
who
is important.
knows?
That's what they want, right?
Exactly. Who knows the kids better than the parent? Who knows what's best for them? Is it a stranger in a courtroom who's making a decision for a child they've never had the privilege of meeting? Or is it the parents? So giving people the opportunity to go through mediation, and most people, just as a general rule, unless they've come through litigation before, don't even know what mediation is. So
Exactly. Yeah. I
they
mean,
wouldn't think
we talked
of,
about that early on in our conversation. They don't, the general public, just in
mhm,
passing, does not know, does not understand mediation, and doesn't
mhm,
know that there are these services available to them.
exactly. So if you followed my directive in quotes,
Mm.
and put this kind of clause in every agreement, just like they put the arbitration clauses, then you would have people resolving their disputes peacefully. The
Yeah, I
other
like that.
thing that
The
I would
Elaine
like
Roberts directive. Okay, number two.
number two is I would personally like to see everybody take the Sam Houston State University Conflict Resolution Pledge that was developed by Dr. Jean Roberts and his Office of Student Legal Affairs and Mediation, of Student Legal and Mediation
Mhm.
Services. And if I could take just a moment to read
Yes,
some of
please.
these, I think
Yeah.
you'll understand. One of the first tenets of it, there's 9 tenets in this pledge. The first is I will assume good intentions, taking the time to put myself in the other person's shoes. I will listen to others with an ear toward understanding. I will attack problems, not people. So I won't read out all 9 to you, but my thought was this, that if everybody took this pledge, not just waiting for October, which is Conflict Resolution Month, I think we can see that we might not need additional laws.
All right. Good point.
There's plenty of
Good point.
laws on the books, but if you give people the opportunity and the skills, which I think taking things like the Conflict Resolution Pledge do
Yeah.
help to sharpen those skills,
And
that
that's
we may
from Dr. Jean Roberts,
exactly at the Sam
another person
Houston.
that we all should get to know.
Yeah, exactly.
So the second fun question, I like the
Hmm.
directives. The
Hmm.
second fun question is if you could travel through time, Elaine,
Hmm.
and go back and meet people in history or a time period that is
Hmm.
sort of meaningful to you, where would you go? Where in history would you
Hmm.
travel and
Okay.
why?
Well, from a personal standpoint, I would personally love to go back and meet my parents on their wedding day and
Oh,
just
that's cool. Yeah.
be able to ask them questions that I never got the opportunity to ask. Learn
Like
from
what?
them what they expected, what the world was like. But from a historical perspective, I think I would like to go back to the 1990s, at the time that Nelson Mandela was being released from prison,
Hmm.
because I would like to meet him and learn how someone who had just been released from 27 years of very torturous prison
Yeah.
could then interact with people who had imprisoned him. Not only interact, but thrive with them. I mean, he went on to win the Nobel Peace Prize, being allowed to vote for the first time at the age of
Yeah.
76, and then he becomes the first Democratic president. What is it in his makeup that allowed him to be forgiving and to see past what had been done to him for what had been done to the nation?
Well, that
Um,
really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? I mean,
it does.
Nelson Mandela has got to be the epitome of what forgiveness should be like.
I can't even imagine that
Yeah,
level
me
of
neither.
emotional development. And then if I did have a chance to get that, I'd love to share that with today's politicians.
Oh boy. I love that. Hopefully they
Yeah,
would listen.
well, that's true.
I'm
Maybe the
afraid some of them
Mandela
wouldn't.
name would
Uh,
impress them enough.
hopefully, hopefully.
Yes.
Gosh, well, I love that. I love
Mhm,
that idea. And I think going back to the 90s and talking to
mhm,
Nelson Mandela, seeing that, you know, we were present in the 90s. We knew what was going on, but
mhm.
we didn't know everything because we only knew what the media was going to tell us. So I love
Exactly.
that, Elaine. Thank you so much for being on the
Mhm,
podcast. This has been great. We've learned a lot
mhm.
about dispute resolution and mediation. If there was just one or two nuggets that you want our listeners to walk away with, what would those be? Because we've shared a lot of information. You've shared a lot of information in this conversation. So a couple nuggets, one or two.
Well, one thing is that you don't have to repeat the patterns of conflict resolution that aren't serving you well. It
Perfect.
is possible at any age to learn to do things differently and more peacefully. And those skills can be taught and passed on to the other generation. And I think I'd like people to understand how much the kids coming up are thirsting for conflict resolution, peaceful conflict
Yeah.
resolution. We're seeing that in the peer mediation programs, the justice mediation programs, in each and every message on these bookmarks that we distribute, that they are
Yeah.
really thirsting for us as adults to act better, to act more peacefully and in a more united way. And
There are such strong emotions coming out in that art. It's hard to put it into words. Having seen
mhm,
many of those during the
mhm,
2022 year,
mhm,
those bookmarks, you can just see the time that they put in
mhm,
and kind of get a feeling for what's going through their mind. I mean, yeah,
mhm,
I'm sure they are thirsting for really
mhm,
good way to resolve issues and problems that they're experiencing. And who
mhm.
knows what they are in today's world.
Exactly. And then I guess the third and final thing I'd like to really stress is that the Dispute Resolution Center is always seeking volunteers. I mean, we're volunteer driven. If you have communication skills, people skills, and want to become a mediator, that's great. But we're not limited to that. We accept volunteers who work with our teen programs, who work with our bookmark art programs. Just give us a call and we've got a spot for you, you know.
So good segue to the last question. How can people get in touch with the DRC of Montgomery County and learn more?
They can either email us at mediate@mctx.org, or they
Okay.
can call our office Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that number is 936-760-6914. And the extension 2 is our intake coordinator who can get them to the right person within our agency.
Perfect. Perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Elaine. This has been
Mhm.
wonderful. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I know that there's still a lot of work to be done, and you're still going to make a huge impact on the community. And just keep at it, because we need everything that you're doing, and we need more people like you.
Well,
For
thank you,
sure.
Jeff.
And thanks for
I
coming on the
appreciate
podcast.
it.
And
Mhm.
to all my listeners, thank you for tuning in, Game Changers. I know today was a good day, and I know tomorrow is going to be even better. Peace, everyone.